I think demographics is a real issue where people are not having kids in a lot of countries. Should be concerned about demographic implosion.
Why do you say that?
So if you look at countries like Japan, most of Europe, China, and you look at the birth rate in a lot of those places is only at about half of the sustaining rate. When you have an inverted demographic pyramid, so if you look at the pyramid and you've got age striation, 60-year-olds, 50-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 20-year-olds, like sort of a demographic pyramid.
Right.
And in some countries, it's like an upside-down pyramid, so it'll sort of fall over. It will not stand. And very often they'll say, "Oh, I'll solve it with immigration." Immigration from where? If Europe has an average, or many parts of Europe have an average of a 50 or 60, they're only at 50 or 60% of what's needed for replacement, or China for that matter. They're at half replacement rate. Where exactly are we going to find 600 million people to replace the ones that were never born? I think people are going to have to regard, to some degree, the notion of having kids as almost a social duty within reason. I mean, just if you can and you're so inclined, you should. It's like otherwise civilization will just die, literally. What we'll actually have in those countries is a very high dependency ratio, where the number of people who are retired is very high relative to the number of people who are net producers. And so you cannot, the social safety net will not hold. And now it's, you've got cases like Japan where adult diapers outsell baby diapers. Europe's in a similar situation. China's headed the same way because they've had the one-child policy, and then even though they've relieved the one-child policy, the social norm has become to have an average of one kid. So even when they relieved that requirement, it didn't change. You can imagine, like people sometimes say, well, what about immigration? It's like, okay, look, there's 1.5 billion people in China. Where is China going to get 700 million new people? Okay, that's like 3 Indonesias. It's like, it doesn't work. And the full gravity of this is not well understood, but will become a severe issue in the next few decades. The birth rate is strongly correlated to, it's inversely correlated to wealth, inversely correlated to education, and correlated to religion. So the more religious you are, the less educated, and the poorer you are, the more kids you will have. And this is true between countries and within countries. In the US, the highest birth rate is in Utah with the Mormons. Yeah. I think if you're saying what are threats to civilization, the lack of people is obviously a threat to civilization. We are going to face in the mid part of the century, and particularly the latter part of the century, a demographic implosion, the likes of which we haven't seen, including the Black Plague. The math is obvious.
A demographic implosion, the likes of which we haven't seen, including the Black Plague.
When did China ever experience a 50% reduction in its population? Never. I mean, basically, pre-writing, okay, because no one's ever written of such a thing. Even the Black Plague, Black Plagues would go through, I think that they might have demolished like a quarter, but never a half. Yeah. And yet Spain, birth rate of 50%. It's as though someone went through and killed half the population, or at least of the future population. Yeah. There's something better happen to turn this around, because otherwise you have an inverted demographic pyramid. And it's going to, at this rate, the only thing that'll be left will be robots. 3 generations of 50% birth rate, 50% replacement rate, gets you to 12% of where you were. And those poor 12%, all they're going to be doing is taking care of their grandparents. I mean, eventually there just won't be people at that rate. The other, I think religious extremism is obviously a concern. If that grows over time, particularly if it's a sort of a Luddite form of religious extremism. Anti-technology. Right, anti-science, right, exactly. Then that's an obvious threat. Yeah, I won't mention the third one.
You might.
much for watching. If you've enjoyed our video so far, please help us grow our YouTube channel by giving it a quick like. Just press the little thumbs up below the video. Be sure to tell us what you think in the comments section, and most importantly, please press that subscribe button so you can enjoy more of our awesome videos in the future. Please stick around and watch more videos. Here's a couple you might enjoy next.